Just so you all know, I didn't share the email that you guys have a copy of in front of you. Actually has a few additions. So she added them to the bottom, so you can see by the timing. I think there's 3 or 4 that were added since you received it yesterday. Today. So that's the latest version as of 5:10.
All right, let's call the meeting to order. We got to stand and do our Pledge of Allegiance first, right?
Yeah.
All right. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, for all of you that were at the water meeting 10 minutes ago,
All right, so first, thanks to everybody for coming out. We've multiplied the audience by at least 10, I think, which is nice to see. Let's go through the agenda. The first item on the agenda is the second, approval of agenda and minutes. I saw one correction under 4. Steve Offerman. If passed by the voters, the tax would be about $120 per household. I recall him saying $150.
$150.
So with that, and there's another.
Just 2 tiny ones. My name actually is an A at the end instead of an E. And also on the last page, we met, it just says that the next meeting would be the 21st and it's the 24th. But these are excellent minutes. I just am grateful for anyone willing to take minutes. I want to say that.
yes. Thank you.
So with those corrections, is there a motion?
Make a motion that we accept with corrections.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Trevor, that was for the minutes. What about the agenda?
Next on the item is the approval of the agenda. So we're asked to approve the agenda as presented. Has everyone had an opportunity to read the agenda? Yes? And is there a motion to approve
moved.
the agenda? So moved. Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. So we have the agenda and the minutes have been approved. The next item is item number 3, I believe, public comments. We're going to limit public comments to 3 minutes per person. I'm going to call the people in order in which the stack is in front of me. So first is Pedro Mal. Please come forward, Pedro. Good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Do I stand anywhere?
Please.
Yeah, right here.
Here's good enough.
Sure. I'm certainly not going to say hi. I know several of you personally, and it's nice to thank you for listening to me, for all of you. Louder? That was just a greeting. I was hoping that during your commentary, I wanted you to, if you would do me a favor of answering 2 questions. One, I would like to know if I understand the situation with the place where Rock Tree Sky currently resides. I wanted to know your perspective of why you would extend their agreement so that they could reside there longer. I wanted that.
We've done nothing.
We haven't said that.
You haven't what?
We haven't said that yet.
Said what?
That's something that we're here to talk
Okay,
about.
if
So
you
we haven't
discuss
answered that yet.
it, if that possibility arises, I was hoping that during the discussion, that question could be answered, why you would extend it. And the other was for you, if that possibility continues down the track and gets brought even forward more, that you consider phrasing, or to know if you're not powerless to phrase any agreement in an automatically renewing phrasing, so that my goal, or what I want to bring out is for the people at Rock Tree Sky to not have to always be concerned about the location year after year after year, and to put it in a situation whereby they can, if they're doing their job and everything complies with what your expectations are, that it would automatically renew, and they can focus just on what they're doing now, which is teaching my son and a lot of other people's children. So, thank you very much.
Well, before you leave, Pedro,
Yes.
can you answer a question?
Yes.
The first thing you want to know is why we would agree to extend a lease beyond, but you didn't specify a period of time. Is there a time limit in your?
To extend it, why, how, from your perspective, what the benefits are to the
Okay.
city of Ojai to extend it?
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Deneen, good to see you. You make the best kombucha in Upper Ojai, by the way. I was drinking some on the way here.
I promise I will teach everybody to make kombucha.
Thank you. This is very spontaneous because I really wasn't prepared to speak, but I do want to speak on behalf of my husband and I both in favor of Rock Tree Sky being able to continue its existence there without the stress of a month-to-month situation where they have a long-term lease. On the other hand, or in conjunction with that, someday we're hoping that Summit will have enough children that there could be a public school again there. So we don't want to see it sold because then it's gone forever. But I know that we can work something out with Jim and his schedule. He's not there 100% of the time. It's always been a community center. We've always had events there, so that I don't think there'd be anything to stop the community from still having activities there. But just to keep it within the district so that someday one of my kids is going to move back here and hopefully be able to attend the school, and then someday there might be enough children. Thank you.
Say it, tell the folks what you're saying.
Mr. Cantwell, maybe you can make a point of order, just to allow everybody to calm down. We're only, my understanding is that we're only a recommending body. Whether we recommend it all, we absolutely have no authority. Whatever we say is not binding. It is the school board, totally. So.
That's correct. So
I
this
just
is
want
a-
everybody to know we are not here to determine the fate of Rock Tree Sky, the property up there, what it rents for, what the lease amount is, and what the term is. We can make recommendations, but we're just a recommending body. That's the limit of the authority. And I think this is our last meeting probably, so.
You'll have at least one more meeting after this,
Okay.
but everything you just said, Bob, is correct. This is an advisory committee, so they will make recommendations to the board. The board is actually the authority when it comes to deciding whether or not to actually deem this property surplus. So if you heard that the property was identified for surplusing at their last meeting, again, this is only the recommending body. So what they said at their last meeting was making a recommendation to our school board to surplus, but it's the board that actually would make that determination.
Well, with that said, the goal of tonight's meeting is we voted at the last meeting to deem the property surplus, and that's going to be our recommendation to the school board. And then the goal of tonight's meeting is to make a list of priority uses. And then, once we make that list, I believe we're putting that list out to the public, and then we get more comments on the list that's being made. So your input so far has been helpful in making this list of priority uses. So I really appreciate you being here, and we have a lot of emails. I've been watching all the social media posts about it, so I think it's very important that people show up and give us input.
And a lot of this might be more appropriate once we've had a chance to discuss and come up with some ideas. And then, once we come up with some ideas, there may be some of the things that you want, and it may be a little more expedient to have us do a discussion. And then when we come up with a list of recommendations, then get everybody back here to speak. Isn't that the way that format would work? Before it goes final to the school board?
So again, you'll have at least one more meeting after tonight, because once you determine your priority list of potential uses, that does then get publicized to the community, and we have a public hearing on those uses. However, as Chairman Quirk said, I think it's excellent that we have the participation here tonight, and it certainly is appropriate for folks to comment tonight to help give you guys input as you deliberate. And the exact same comments could be made again next week, just to reaffirm after the discussion as well.
Because I think our list of uses should reflect what the public wants. It's not our own individual. I mean, we're on this committee, but we represent the people of. So I think it's very important that you give us input. Nevertheless, Kim Smith, you're up.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, no, we're not making a decision tonight. No.
Just make it possible, priority uses.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry I didn't get to dress for the occasion. I just came home from work at Rocktree Sky. I'm the art director there and love every single minute of it. And I'm just here in support of our school and to let you guys know that in 25 years of teaching, it's the first place I've ever taught where kids cannot wait to get in the mornings. They run from their cars and they hate when we have vacation. They hate weekends. They hate having to go home at the end of the day. And I think we're onto something really special and wonderful and beautiful there. So I'm just here as a voice of support for the kids. So thank you.
Ms. Rivers?
Hello, for the record, my name is Kimberly Rivers. I live in the city of Ojai. My one son has attended OUSD schools. He attended Summit. He's at Matilaha now, and the plan is to graduate from Nordoff. I'm here representing a group of parents and community members who would like to see Summit reopen as a free public school. The community excitement is building, and we're thrilled to be a part of this opportunity for the community and the district. We are an inclusive group, and we're not trying to create a win-lose proposition. In fact, we think there is a possibility of a win-win-win. The community, the district, and those who want to have other uses at the site. It's completely within the realm of logical thought to have the Summit site as a community center, a preschool, an after-school program, an educational program host, adult education, and a traditional free public school. There's no reason at this point to exclude any option, and so tonight we're asking you to include a free public school, a free public charter school on the recommended priority list for uses at Summit School. For those of you who might not be aware, charter schools are free public schools overseen by a school district, the county board of education, or the state, depending on which body authorizes it and approves it. They're governed by the same requirements that all California public schools must adhere to. At the last 7-Eleven committee, you all expressed an interest in hearing an update about the process of the group working on this. We have a charter document and are working with legal counsel. Our charter board is working throughout our community, building support and connecting with families interested in enrolling in the free public school for fall of 2020. And I know that the committee specifically asked and was looking for the number of students officially signed up so far. I am not going to be providing that information to you tonight because we're following the charter process, and that information will be delivered to the OUSD school board when we deliver our complete charter packet to them in the near future. And so just a reminder, we think a free public school should be included on the priority list of uses for the Summit School site.
Mr. Campbell, would now be an appropriate time to talk about the possibility of a charter? Should we wait to do that after all public comments?
We can do it anytime you'd like.
Well, let's address the elephant in the room. I think that's important because it was just brought up by Ms. Rivers. And I'd like to ask.
I'd like to speak against charter schools. Can I speak before you discuss?
Sure. Why not? What's your name?
Gloria Valladolid.
Are you on the public comment so I can find you in the?
I am.
Okay, super.
I disagree with what was just said. I would like for the public not to confuse a charter school with a traditional public school, even though Kimberly mentioned them both in the same sentence. I think that it needs to, if you're going to have a school, well, okay, sorry, erase that. So it's different. Charter schools are not regular public schools. The only reason they can be called public schools is because they receive our tax dollars. That's what makes them public. That's the only reason. Charter schools can be businesses that are run for profit. Regular public schools have one purpose, education. That is why those in favor of public education do not believe in charter schools. Charter schools take money away from our regular public school budgets and cause decline in enrollment, which OHI would like to stop. The public elects boards of education which govern regular traditional public schools. Private boards control charter schools. That makes charter schools unaccountable to the people. I'm a retired educator from traditional public schools. I have seen Roosevelt High School in Los Angeles go from 6,000 student enrollment to its current 1,000 plus because of the effect of the charter school drain. A wannabe charter school in Upper Ojai needs to become a private school if they want a school there, not supported by our tax dollars that would take money and students from our regular traditional public schools. The committee may wish to do what Oakview did. I saw that you had a speaker from there where they preserved the existing infrastructure from their elementary school for a community center. But one of their requirements was that they not use the space for a competitive charter school which would compete with their own schools.
Thanks. Which I think is why I asked Mr. Cantwell to address the issue about charter schools. So can you do that?
I'm sorry, tell me your name again.
Gloria.
Gloria.
Valladolid.
Gloria, thank you very much for your comments. So actually, Gloria, I think, spoke more eloquently than I can to the topic you've asked me to speak to Trevor. So we just, Trevor and I spoke after our last committee meeting, and he felt it was important that I did convey, if the topic came up, that there is a reason that Ventura Unified put into a restriction into the deed when they sold it to the county, not allowing a charter school to be present there. Charter schools are competition to school districts such as ours. When it comes to a charter up there, obviously it would be the board's decision. They've not weighed in on that this time. However, it's the position of the administration that we have great concern about the ability to run an effective educational program up there. First and foremost, our concerns would be about the educational quality. It was very challenging to operate a K-6. To operate a K-8 in that same space would become even more challenging. So again, first and foremost, if we were evaluating a charter, we'd be looking to ensure that we felt confident the school was able to provide an appropriate, enriching educational environment, and we'd have just initial concerns. But also I want it to be understood that from a financial perspective, if the program is taking students away from our district, that is going to have a direct impact on funding for Ojai Unified. There are scenarios in which a district that's an authorizing agent is able to receive administrative fees, and actually we do currently receive administrative fees from Valley Oak Charter. But I believe, and the situation's been brought up so far as a classroom-based charter school, that it would certainly be a net reduction in revenues for the district. So Trevor just thought it was important that I address those two pieces.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Well, I think that when they closed Summit School, the Ojai Unified School District lost a number of students. And so their income was reduced. So, and I don't think that Mr. Cantwell has ever mentioned that. So,
Do you want me to engage in conversation?
I'm just saying that there's other ways that the income has been reduced besides what you're saying.
I think if this issue comes up during the list of priority uses, we should best address it then, if that's okay. Thank you, Ms.
Valladolid.
Thank you. I'm working on Spanish, but not in public. Next up, Mr. Bailey. Valladolid.
If you came to the meeting tonight in support of Rock Tree Sky, I know not everybody's going to speak, so I'd at least like you to just stand up for just a moment if you're here supporting Rock Tree Sky so we can get a sense of there's some bodies. Thank you so much for coming. You've received letters from some of them already. I'm going to speak quickly and just share that we love being at the Summit School site. We recognize the history of the Summit School site, and we just ask the body, whichever direction your recommendations go, to consider that the site is being used lovingly as a home for these homeschool families, and that our purpose is to continue to use the space, care for the space, provide enrichment, socialization opportunities for homeschool families, and then pass it back to the district at such a time if the numbers come back up and there's a need for a public school up there again. And with some time ahead of us to know when that might be, to have some room to breathe. I'd love it if the committee could recommend a lease with some length of time and maybe even an opportunity for a ground lease to do some work on that property with the people of Upper Ojai. I've recently been reaching out to community members. I talked to Rod Thompson the other day, and I said, what do you think, about a community center here versus, us leasing it? He paused. He said, it already is a community center. It's always been a community center. And he said, I know that we can continue to use it. I know that you're not going to have a hard time with that. And, so then I reached out to the larger community on social media and got a list of a lot of great ideas. So, I want to let the committee know that we continue to be open to that option and would like to care and even improve the site if there's an opportunity to do so, with the community help. So thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Quick question, Jim.
Yes, sir.
How much time would minimum lease would you be looking for?
If I had my druthers?
Yep.
5 years with a couple of 5-year right of refusals to examine what's going on with the demographics and the numbers. I think it'd take at least 5 years for there to be enough kids in Upper Ojai potentially to reopen, personally. But those are not my tea leaves to read.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I'm just curious, so this committee, just a clarification on our job. We're not involved though in the lease. Are we supposed to, in addition, recommend lease terms, or is that completely up to the
I
school?
think it's a list of priority. My understanding is just the use, and then the period of time is up to the new or current superintendent to negotiate the terms of that lease. It's not a-
But we can recommend,
recommendations.
we can recommend.
Hold on.
You can certainly make a recommendation as to length of time.
Oh, great.
So if this
Okay.
committee
Yeah.
felt they want to encourage or have as the number one priority use by Rock Tree Sky, but only for, let's say, a period of 5 years to give both the district and a potential charter further time to build out a concept, then, you can give a time limit.
And does anyone object to me asking Mr. Bailey a bunch of questions beyond the 3-minute period? Because I think it's fair to say that this is really one of the main uses that this committee's gonna be asked to do. I have a lot of questions in my mind just for you, Mr. Bailey. Is that okay if we ask him?
Could I read our charge here first? And then that way everybody will know what we're actually supposed to be doing. It's item 4. The committee shall deliberate, take action to establish an initial priority list of surplus space and real property that will be acceptable to the community. This list will be circulated through the attendance area and public hearing will be held May 9th, 19. Provide for hearing to the community, input to the committee on acceptable uses of space, real property, including the sale or lease of surplus property for child care development purposes pursuant to 17-458. So that's,
So the first, we did half of that at the last meeting, and by voting to deem the property surplus, that enables the school board and the superintendent to either enter into a sale or a lease of the property. Without that, you have to just default to a 30-day license, which is not fair to Mr. Bailey. So we're halfway there, I think. Then we're trying to accomplish the second thing, which is, okay, it's deemed surplus, now the school board can either sell or lease it. What does this committee want to recommend to the school board? And so I think since you're using the property, that's one of the biggest issues is, at least, I have some questions, either sit there or come up, whatever.
I'll come up. I mean,
Okay, great.
if the committee's okay with me answering them. And Bob, if I can, I think I hear you, saying maybe this would be more appropriate at the next meeting, is that?
No,
Oh, okay.
no, I just
All
want to
right.
make sure everybody understands
Yeah.
that, we need to get the questions because we're gonna be charged with
Yeah.
answering these 4 questions.
Yeah,
So we better get some answers.
sure.
So we can come up with something because
Yeah,
after this, it gets circulated to the community.
sure. We just want to let you know how we
So
feel.
we're not supposed to be asking questions and not having an idea. We're supposed to come up with an idea and then have it ready to submit, not to develop it the next
Yeah.
meeting. Develop it here, submit it for the next one.
Sure, I think,
So that's
We're
really
making
what-
sausage. We're getting.
That's legally what we always have to do.
Well, all right. Mr. Bailey, you
Yes.
gave us some materials, and I see within your materials from, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, 104 kids. Can you remind me of the number of those kids that come to your school from within the OUSD, Ohio Unified School District?
it was about 57, I don't know, it's in 50.
Oh, yeah, okay,
50s.
my bad, I see it right here, within OUSD boundaries, so you have 57 kids. Good job.
Yeah, you never know, and then I can't remember somebody's name standing right in front of me, right?
All right, so one of the things that, when I heard Mr. Cantwell talk about the charter school.
Yes.
And reading between the lines, the school district is opposed to a charter school because it's gonna be a competitor.
Right.
Why doesn't that same reasoning apply to Rock Tree Sky? If you're drawing 57 kids
Sure.
to your program.
Yeah, we're mostly been taking from the private schools. I mean, not taking, but most of the families have come within OUSD from either private schools or pre-existing homeschoolers. I think families that want a standard school model are gonna stay in a standard school, whether it's an Ojai public school or it's a private school in the valley. The families that come to us really are ready to step away from that model. They're ready to homeschool. And there's a growing number of families that are very comfortable homeschooling. Even I, as an educator, have been reevaluating, rethinking, the teacher in front, knowing all the stuff. When these kids are watching YouTube and learning a lot. I was doing a seminar the other day on astronomy, and as I was sharing something, a 9th grader said, "Oh, you mean like Heisenberg's uncertainty principle?" And I looked at him, I said, "How do you know this?" And he said, "Oh, there's this guy on YouTube I watch," and he directed me to this channel that he's watching, and it had this guy who knows way more than I do with all the graphics and talking about some really interesting quantum physics phenomena. So my point is, more families are comfortable to homeschool and already are homeschooling. And so I feel like we're working in different ponds and different pools with a different group of people. Will Ojai Unified lose a couple to us? Sure, but they're going to lose a couple here and there all the time. Are we going to lose some back into Ojai Unified? Sure, we do have kids going back into Ojai Unified sometimes. So we're just a alternate educational niche for families who want more support to try something else for the benefit of their children. Because for whatever reason, a regular classroom is not working for these kids. And that's a story I've heard over and over again.
Miss Sidney?
Jim, correct me if I'm
Yes.
wrong, but you're not doing a traditional academic program.
No.
You're doing enrichment. So it's not like he's taking students and giving them the math, science, whatever. It's enrichment.
Yeah.
It's not.
So
The
it's-
families
They're not-
ultimately have the responsibility for that piece.
So it's kids
I know.
who are already out of
I'm doing this
the
for
regular
everyone.
school district.
Yeah.
And are being homeschooled or in the school district but want enrichment. So from that sense,
Right.
it's not taking from the district, so to speak.
I have a question, Andy, with regard to the charter school revenue stream going into the district. The only revenue stream that we would get if there was a charter school there would be some administrative stuff, I think that you said that we might get from some outside agency.
From a charter school?
If we had a charter school there, what revenue stream would
Well, we
owe?
wouldn't be the authorizing LEA in all likelihood, so we wouldn't actually be getting an administrative fee. But we could charge them an appropriate, or slightly reduced, but a fee for use of the site.
Fee for use,
So we could
okay.
still be coming in with a rental revenue from a charter.
I gotcha, okay.
Yeah, there is still that potential.
Potentially the same as what we would lease for, or something.
Actually, we could charge you more. And we would. Charter schools are protected by Ed Code and having a lower threshold. You're private sector, and I know you're nonprofit, but we still
Yeah, I understand.
charge you a little more.
That's all I want to hear right now. Andy.
Speaking of money,
Trevor, any other questions?
So I had another conference call with Steve Bennett's office
Sure,
today.
sure.
And I wanted to make sure I understood Steve Offerman's proposal to the board and what he was talking about.
Right.
And I was wondering if you saw yourself falling within that, you were here when Mr. Offerman gave that proposal, right?
I was, and I spoke to Mr. Offerman as well. I called
Okay,
him
good.
to find out.
So what he is basically saying, there's new people here, is you not arbitrarily, but you draw a line within Upper Ojai.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how we did during the fires, roadblock to roadblock.
Sure.
And that's kind of the lines that he used. You draw a line within Upper Ojai. You put it out to the voters and say, would you like to tax yourselves, right?
Right.
And if 2/3 of the voters agree to tax themselves, they could then raise the funds
Yep.
to purchase the school.
Yeah.
And it goes to the county.
Yeah.
And then the county, it becomes a county property,
Sure.
which is basically owned by the people.
Right.
The county then contracts with someone like you, or in this case with the Oakview Community Center, it is Barbara Kennedy.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself being a Barbara Kennedy? And if not, why not?
Yeah. You know, when that first came up, my wife and I talked a lot about it, and I actually called Barbara again, and I actually talked to her again today, because it's an interesting concept. And I would, you know, as I thought about the idea of doing that job, I love that community building piece, you know, like I know you love as well. And Mr. Offerman shared what might be hard is he felt that my role at Rock Tree Sky would need to change, because otherwise it would be a conflict of interest. If I was doing Barbara Kennedy's job and still working with Rock Tree Sky, it would be a conflict of interest for the county. So let's say I leave Rock Tree Sky and I'm just Barbara Kennedy in Upper Ojai and finding those people. You know, there's a part of me that's interested in that, and if it's the will of the people, it's the will of the people, and we would gladly use the space in that way. Barbara did inform me one of the things that she has to do, being that they've created now a very public space. It's an open public space in the daytime. And so while they have programs, they're preschool programs, they also have Al-Anon meetings, and they have county required attendance meetings for some people who, you know, have to go to these meetings, either, you know, drug or alcohol meetings there. And so she said, I have to really look up Megan's Law and this. And so it really, as I think about that and that space becoming a space that then the county might use, you know, get some of the things it wants, which is a space for, you know, drug and alcohol addiction programs, which need to have some place to go, I suppose. I think about sharing that space in the daytime with those things. I don't think that's something my families would feel good about. And I know it would create a big amount of stress for me when I think about the safety of those kids having a shared use like that in the daytime. So that would be concerning to me. And the size of the site is just very different. So if that's the will of the people and Rock Tree Sky feels comfortable being a piece of it, and the things that are there in the day feel safe to have around kids, maybe, sure. I'm not foot down, no way against it, but does it seem overly complicated and maybe it might not go the way we think it could go? I think so. I think the county might have its own desires. That's what Barbara Kennedy told me today. So those are things I think about when I think about, and then you're never going to have it back for a public school for Lauren's grandkids. So that is the loss.
The demographics have to completely change for that to be a realistic option. I mean, we have to really kind of face that.
Yeah, not my tea leaves. I don't know. It's not my area of expertise.
All right.
It was my understanding too that the county wasn't like pushing for it. They're like, well, we might if
Right.
you guys.
Will accommodate you.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
He's not pushing
yeah,
for it. And
If
there's
the people
not a
want it,
big
the people
desire.
will want it. You know, I think it's left to see what the people want.
And the term, ideally, the lease that you want is a 5-year lease with an option to renew for 2 consecutive 5-year periods.
If we get to the end of 5 years, there's all these kids in Upper Ojai, or people are saying, no, we want a community center, then, you know, the district can end its lease, and you know, we can say thank you very much, and we have some awareness that that's going to be happening, and we can, you know, create our own spot.
Does the lease that you envision allow you to use the entire property and exclude the public during your school hours?
That's left to be negotiated. One thing that, when I've been looking at the space with the next student, who's an environmental architect, we've looked at that field area, which is just barren and unused in the heat of the day. And he said, what about some paths? What about some, already on the site plan, there's a little amphitheater, there's some smaller saplings set up. So more could be done. And if then between that public use space and where the buildings are, that kind of playground area, if there was some kind of little buffer zone, just having random people from the public walk into an environmental space like this, an educational setting like that, it doesn't feel wise to me. So in that sense, however, Trevor, if there was room, or committee, if there was room in a room and somebody's coming in to do a class, Lauren says, hey, I want to do I would offer a kombucha making session, and we know that that's scheduled, and we would support that because that's going to benefit the kids, right? There's going to be enrichment from the community. So those things I would love to have, where it's a known entity quantity. But just random people off the street walking on, I don't think anybody on this committee wants that in an environment where there's a bunch of kids of all ages. I would guess.
So do we have anybody else here that's gonna speak about possible uses?
We have two other people on the list. Thanks, Mr. Bailey. Those are questions I had for you.
Okay.
Carrie Sanders?
Sorry, thanks, Jim.
That's all right.
I am a parent of a student. I live in the Ojai Unified School District area. My son attended Miners Oaks Elementary, Matilaha Junior High, and began at Nordop, and we found that it really just wasn't a fit for him. And so knowing Jim from elementary school when he was the science teacher, and I saw that he started this school up in Upper Ojai, I was like, please, my son is like really struggling at Nordop, and I'd like to have see another option for him. And it's been great having him at Rock Tree Sky. Like Kim was saying, he actually looks forward to going to school. I don't have to coerce him, and as well as his friends. And so I feel like it's nice to have an alternative here in the valley that is accessible, and it's something that is needed. It's not a fit for all kids. Ojai Unified isn't a fit for all kids, so it's nice to have some option of where to go, and I've really appreciated having Rock Tree Sky available. That's it.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was thinking about something. Terry O'Connor. I was reading that, thinking.
Terry O'Connor. I wanted to advocate for continuing the lease of Rock Tree Sky and making it so that they have some security about that. I have two grandchildren in the school, and it really is a unique place. It's not something that's comparable to and I'm just thinking, Jim, as you were saying about being concerned about having other people there, unknown people, that concerns me more there than with a normal school. When you've got the teacher in the classroom, that's one thing. When the kids are free to move around a lot, you don't really have that strict supervision. That could be concerning. But it really is unique, and our two grandkids love it. I want to speak particularly about my grandson, who's 11. I can feel my heart in this thing because he's my heart, as all our grandchildren are, I think. And they were both in a good private school before, and but he had trouble fitting in because he's a very bright kid who's really more comfortable with adults than he is with other kids, his peers, and was pretty shy with them. And also because he's so bright and such a self-motivated learner, I mean, he's a guy who read the whole anatomy book by himself because he got interested. Now he's reading about electrical engineering just because he's interested. He's a perfect fit for that kind of school. And in the other schools, he's always been on the outside. He never quite fit in. Socially, because he's shy and he doesn't quite know how to do it very well. And academically, because he's got to follow his passion, whatever it is. And I have no question that he will have a totally rounded education by the time, much further than I had, by the time he's going to college or wherever. But and socially, there's so much collaborative things that go on in Rock Tree Sky. They're not stuck in a classroom that they have to be with the same kids all the time. They choose what they want to do, and what they want to do is put on a play. So they build a stage. The kids build the stage. So he's working side by side with these other kids, and then he's going to be in the play. So he's working again side by side with these other kids, and he's getting to make friends for the first time. So it's not, I think it's a unique thing. I think it's been a gift to our family, a gift to the kids, and I think a gift to the community.
Jim, I had one more question. The length of time, how long is your program with your kids?
8:30 to 3:30.
I mean age, like what age group do we start?
5 to 17.
5 to 17.
Mixed age setting.
And then does the 5-year-old, is there a progression of is there some kind of progression protocol as they go through?
Not necessarily. They have some particular mentors who are meant to really stay aware of their unique needs that are different. But I had a 7-year-old and a 17-year-old working together the other day on a audio MIDI controlled keyboard making beats on a computer.
Right.
So in that sense, no.
Okay.
But really, they do have to follow, if they are not filing a private school affidavit for their home, the parent, if they are going to a homeschool charter school, they do have to follow along with the standards via their teacher that they meet with once every 25 days. And they do follow along in that progression.
Okay.
But while they're with us, there's no real progression. It's really interest-based, etc.
My biggest concern would be, okay, you get a 5-year lease, and then at the end of the 5-year lease, it's like, okay, well, now we want it back. What do we do with these guys? Do we have some kind of transition model to help you get these guys to a different place?
Right.
So that we're not just abandoning these guys and making them just, trying to find other stuff and making you find other stuff real fast. I think that it would be important to have some kind of transition time if they're going to do that, but that's all in the works.
I think that's a detail that would be important to consider as well.
Can I ask a question about the tuition?
Yeah.
What the tuition is for different types of students? It sounds like it's
That would be a longer discussion. It's on our website, and I would direct you to that. It's also in the minutes from the first meeting. Andy could give it to you.
Yeah, it's on our website as well.
Yeah.
On the district website under 7 on the committee.
Yeah, it's, and some families receive partial public funding. But yes, it's that information would be challenging for me to rattle off the top of my head.
All right, so we're done with the public comments.
Can I ask a question real quick? Of all you that are here, in support of Rock Tree Sky, how many of you reside in Upper Ojai?
What are the boundaries of Upper Ojai?
Denison Grade to St. Thomas Aquinas.
1, 2, 3.
I know. Just curious. I'm just curious. Thank you.
Can I ask Jim a question too? How long has Rock Tree Sky been in existence?
This is year 3.
Year 3. Have you looked at other sites for your program?
Yes.
And
I've not found I've not found other sites that move me to want to shift where we're at. Yeah, it's challenging. It is to find appropriate other sites. But yeah, we had in the past looked at other sites, yes.
well, you originally were at the market.
Correct.
but then you've not found anything since then, other than Summit School.
Well, Summit, yes, Summit opened up and there was an opportunity to make sure that that building wasn't sitting derelict and empty and so, yeah.
And the market wasn't necessarily great.
The market wasn't the best fit, you know?
Outdoor space, it was.
Yeah, it was always, you know, put the cones up and keep an eye on things and be in process to try and make it work better, but yeah, it was not a.
Trevor, can I speak, can I add something to?
Can you come up
Please.
where we can hear you?
State your name so it makes its way in the minutes and
Sure,
we'll.
Christina Johnston. So, I live in Oakview.
Say your name one more
Oh,
time.
sorry, Christina Johnston.
Yes.
I live on Oakview on Burnham Road. I went through the Miramonte, Matilaha, Nordhoff School District. I have a son that's 16 and a daughter who's 10. My daughter goes to Sunset School because I love Miss Sims. She has a very caring heart. She waves hi to every student that goes by. I'm a personal friend of hers. I know how she works and how she's inviting to the school district. So I choose my daughter Haley to go to Ventura School District due to the principal at being a 5th grader. Now my son, who's 16, he went to Nordhoff High School in 9th grade. I flew through just fine. I got along with kids. I could academically do everything. My son was the opposite. It was coming home, fighting, getting Fs in grades. I was praying for another private school-like thing in the Ojai Valley that my son could attend or I could put him to. He played sports. He was a good student, but he didn't like the big classes. He was overwhelmed by being in the mechanical section, and they had 1 or 2 tools to solder when the whole class needed to be taught to. I'm part of a group that I like math instead of core math, and I feel like it's harder for me to teach my kids all those technical things in bigger classrooms. It's not for everybody. When I heard about Rock Tree Sky, I learned all about it. I learned what's the teacher I'm going to meet every month. She's very opening on putting in assignments to these classes, to these teachers. I went from 9th grade to the little market with my son, where there's just a few students, and we've grown, and I would like the board and the Ojai School District not to have that building, the structure that's there now, be vacant and not used. It's a perfect time for our community to grow. We commute from Oakview to Upper Ojai. There's not many parents that would go from Ojai to Upper Ojai, so you really have to look. The people that live in Upper Ojai, are they going to use this space? And if there's ideas or people that would like to use it, I totally feel like Jim is open. He would say, what would your space be for? And is it appropriate around kids? Is it safe around the kids? Is it separate or is it during the hours of school? I feel like that's the major part of this space. And I'd like to see a longer lease and for the schools, so that way us as parents, we don't have to say, what are we going to do next month? So I think having the opportunity of saying, let's do this while he helps with the Ojai School District. We put in water systems at the Libby Bowl downtown, so he's working within the community. The community is focused on our kids' education. My husband's from Agora High School. He would never think charter school, ever. But us having our son in our own circumstance, we had to adjust. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
One more quick question for you. Jim, how long have you been an educator?
18 years, yeah. This is the end of my 18th year. 9 years of Matilaha, 6 years at Oak Grove, 3 years RTS.
Can I ask you another question too, Mr. Bailey? And that is, suppose the school board says we are going to vote to sell the property.
Mm-hmm.
And they put some contingencies on it. It has to be a nonprofit, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, state.
Is Rock Tree Sky, I hate to put you in the position, but I just want to know the answer to this.
Yeah.
Is Rock Tree Sky in a position to purchase the property for the amount of figures that were discussed at the previous meetings?
Yeah, Rocktree Sky is in a position to get a mortgage on that property.
Then why not do that as opposed to a lease?
Do we need to extend ourselves into that we do it if that's what the district wanted, but it feels to me like the thing I hear mostly from Upper Ojai people is that they want the option to have a school back if the numbers come back. And I don't feel in integrity to take that away from them. That's not what I wanna do. So if the numbers come back, I need to find someplace else for the program that we've created so that people can have their public school back.
Wow, okay, thanks. All right, moving on. Any other questions before we move on to the establishing a list of priority uses? None?
I have a quick question for Andy, and you may or may not know this. Say the property gets sold to the county, and in 10 years, hopefully, it becomes affordable for young families to move back up there, and there's this boom of young children. Can't the county say, yes, it can be used as a public school at that point? Does that automatically negate it from reopening in 10 years as a school if it's sold? I understand it would be a part of OUSD, but like, maybe my question isn't coming across. Like, could OUSD lease it from the county at that point? Or, I know that kind of puts you in a position to make a determination, but say there's 200 kids all of a sudden up there, right?
I think it's more likely if there are 200 kids, that only comes through new development up there.
Right.
And new development would likely have a Melrose or have some sort of assessment that would actually allow for the building of a new school up there.
Okay.
That's the only way that you have 200 kids.
Yeah,
But if you're saying if we came back to having 50 kids who actually wanted to attend a school up there, I mean, that wouldn't necessarily require new housing starts. It could be through natural turnover inventory and some rebuilding post-Thomas fire. In that case, there would not be the funding for us to build a new school on a new site, so it would have to be entering into arrangement with the county. I'm trying to think right now of any district I can think of who's done something similar to that. I do know that Oxnard Union High School District has leased space from other agencies for the use of academic purposes, so it's not unheard of.
Okay, so like, if it happened in 10 years, then the community could say, we want to reopen this as a public school. Go to the county for that, go to OUSD. It's not beyond the realm of possibility.
Because there's a public need at that time.
Okay.
The county could sell it, couldn't they?
Well,
Would it need to go back to a vote?
So the only thing right now, just by law, is they wouldn't be able to sell it in less than 5 years. If they're getting access to the property under an exclusive purchase agreement, they have to use it for the purpose that gave them the rights to have the property. So for 5 years, they would have to use it for those purposes. After that, the only restriction would be if we put something in a sale agreement. So if this committee put that forward, and then the board adopted that, then the board could have a contingency or as again, a burden to the property being, just as Ventura Unified said it couldn't be used for charter school purposes, that the district could say that, the county must continue to use it for these purposes for a period of 20 years or that sort of thing. Also, as Trevor said, at our last meeting, Steve Hoffman came from Supervisor Bennett's office. He talked about the only really feasible way that this could happen would be through a tax assessment of properties in whatever area is identified. There would certainly be a restriction based on that having to go to a ballot and go out for an election, that would be very, very clearly stated the timeline that would be required for it to be held on to.
Mr. Cantwell?
Yes.
Maybe you can help. 2 weeks ago, I went home and I had the pleasure of watching at 2 o'clock in the morning the charter school amendments or initiatives or propositions. I think 155 and 156. What there is in Sacramento right now.
That's what you do.
Yeah, well, I own a paper, right? Unfortunately, somebody's got to help me research besides I overwork reporters. There's legislation right now that will not allow out-of-area charter schools to be developed because we have some districts that are allowing charter schools 300 miles away from their actual district in their home office. And so, you know, that's one use that's gonna change.
Well, not with certainty, but yes, there's no question, there's a significant movement within California, public education within the legislature to restrict the forming of charges. In fact, there's actually right now legislation going on to really limit the ability for a county to become the authorizing agent. It's actually becoming, because again, a lot of what we're seeing is that it is eroding the district's enrollment in surrounding neighborhood.
And there's no oversight because they're moving all the way. They've got small little tiny communities that have grown from, 60 kids to 3,000 because they just issue charter schools everywhere. That's kind of not my point. My other point is we had a couple of issues last week that were brought out. Where he said, geez, we have a couple of things, we'd like to get some information. I don't know if we have that information, but I want to make some comments along that way. This proposal that was given as to the value of the school is incredibly flawed. It's 2016. The entire planet up there has changed. These numbers are vastly overstated as to what I think the actual value is. We still didn't get the limitation on having a water allocation, whether you could separate and sell separately. I'm not really sure that a water allocation goes to two separate parcels, should it go that way. But I think $1 million to $1.25 million is way out of the realm for the actual property. So, we need to be realistic with that. And if you're gonna be realistic with that, with all due respect to Mr. Offerman, and I do respect him very much, the numbers he came up make it, and I'm not advocating for this, extremely affordable by parcel, having confiscated Golden State. I know what it takes, I know what the numbers are. We ran $1 billion company out. If they take the flag to flag, roadblock to roadblock, and they take the numbers in there, and then you take a look at what the real value of the property is, it's gonna be half of what that number was put forth as a bond over that period of time. And so that is something, if they're gonna use it as a community use, that appears to be very obtainable. I just wanted to correct that number in there. If this were a number that were done in 2018 rather than 2016, because like I say, the entire area up there has dramatically changed with the loss of the homes, people not rebuilding, people moving out. Lots and lots of people lived in a kind of a camp out situation. And all that has been, a lot of that's been burned and gone away, so I think, I think it's gonna change the end result dramatically, because the values aren't there, that's what I think.
That's with the county purchase option though, right?
That's with anybody, because Caltrans can buy.
Anybody
Government
purchase,
agencies-
anybody purchasing
There's
it.
a hierarchy of government agencies.
Let's getting rid of
Government
it.
agencies don't want them. Then it goes into not the nonprofits, it goes into the 501c3s, which are the charitables, I think.
No, it only goes to certain federal, state, and local agencies that are governmental entities. And again, charter schools potentially have a right under that because they would also be considered a governmental entity. But there is no priority right for 501c3 separate from other non-government agencies.
That works for me.
I did have just one more question for you.
Yes.
Is there any plan to reopen, any situation that's been discussed to reopen?
There's currently no plan the district has to reopen the school.
And no situation where they said we would do that? You would discuss it again?
Well, the board has said,
Oh, no.
we gotta pop up here. Just so you guys know, the reason we're asking everyone to come up here is that we are actually recording these meetings. They are available on our website and on YouTube. And so we have a mic up here, even though it doesn't amplify in the room, it does pick up on the video decently. So to your prior question, does the district currently have plans of reopening the school? The answer is no. The board closed the school in June of this past year, June of 18. They voted in January of 19 to maintain the school closed for this upcoming year. When they initially closed it, they said pending increased enrollment. However, we have not at this time defined what that increased enrollment would be necessary to reopen the school. In part because the board doesn't want to identify a number. Let's call that number, I'm going to just make one up. This truly is not one that's been discussed, but let's say at number 75. They don't want to create an unnecessary or an artificial threshold, because if they had 72 kids, would we really not reopen it for the community because of 3 kids? And so that's the reason that they've been hesitant to identify a very specific number. But we know that number must be well above 24. My own opinion is that we were facing challenges when we were at 42. All the information that was conveyed to the board back in May and June of 2018 was looking at information about the school when it was in the 40s. And so I think that would be hard pressed to reopen the school and have confidence in the academic rigor in the 40s.
So have they discussed any timetable or any schedule to reevaluate that?
They wanted you guys to be convened, for you to deliberate and to come with feedback to them before they were going to take further action. Okay. So your guys' work is tremendously important, and based on the work that you do, that will help influence their timeline.
Doctor, let's just address the elephant in the room. It's never going to be a public school again. It's just not. The demographics aren't there. 5 years from now, the properties aren't going to be any cheaper. You're not going to have young families moving into Upper Ojai that, even if we get to how are you going to get 40 kids in Upper Ojai? There's so many vacant properties right now. Unless you bus them from Lower Ojai to Upper Ojai, this place will never be a public school again. I'm going to get probably killed for saying that, but it's just the brutal, honesty truth.
Well, I was just looking at, since it is one of the options that's been discussed.
I know, and then
just wanted to see, okay, is it even possible? I mean, what's the board, you know? So that's why I was just, because we've only got, I think, 4 options that I see.
Charter is off the list, right? Do we agree that
Well, wait
the school
a second.
district?
Wait. I just want to say, okay, so in my mind.
I'm going to have a seat unless there's any other questions for
Yeah.
me. Otherwise, I think this conversation
Moving on
is really
into public
important.
comment.
If we're segueing into a discussion of what the list is going to be, and my understanding is we should reflect what we're hearing the community wants.
Right.
So far, and I don't know if you're with me, we're hearing Rocktree Sky, we're hearing charter school.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we're hearing maybe community center, but there's a lot of
Or just
ifs
purchase,
to that.
a county purchase.
Right.
Or somebody
So that's
purchasing it.
That's what we're looking at.
Can I ask a question? You've got an excellent point. Would you define community?
Thank you. That was gonna be my
Because-
question too,
because-
because I think we have not a very
Again,
clear.
see, I'm not.
I guess
I'm
for me,
neutral.
it's what we've been provided.
Is it the people
who've
within the school
spoken
district?
and
Is that the
and the letters
community
we've
or?
received.
But all of those as a priority use list, all of that hinges, everything we talk about, community center or something like that, that all comes under us selling the property. So if we're looking at a priority list, selling the property would be that, encompass all of that if we're considering a community center. It has to be sold to somebody, and then they would develop it, so it all falls under sale. So we have sale, charter,
Well, couldn't
Rocktree
the-
Sky.
Okay, no,
So
so
you
you
can
and community
define-
center are two different things, because the community center is based on it going to a vote and being purchased by the county. and
Yeah.
having
But that
the
would still be a
county run.
sale.
It would be a sale, but that's separate from like a sale to a private entity in a different.
Okay, so we would say sale to county.
You
That would be-
we can put specifics in there, right?
Because sale to
Sale
county
to
is
county
different
for
from sale
community
to private
purposes.
use.
For community
Community center,
purposes.
So another really basic question. But don't we have the good fortune to not have to make those decisions?
Yes,
We only
we do.
have to pick
That's
like
right.
what goes on the list.
It's
Yeah.
the prioritization of a recommendation.
Yeah.
We're supposed to generate a report, I think, to the board with a priority list of uses. In other words,
Okay,
priority
what
number
we
1 would
think-
be
okay.
boom.
But we
All
just
right.
create the list today, and then it goes up for public discussion.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So we can just create this list very quickly. I mean, we know what the uses are.
I mean,
wanna
for
chime in
charter
a
school,
little bit
Rocktree
before
Sky,
Yeah.
free public school, and county purchase for community center.
But I think we're doing ourselves and the public a disservice if we include items on this list that are not even a possibility or that the administration and the school board are against. Why do that?
Because aren't we supposed to be getting input from the public and trying to
This
take
is
that
our
into
final-
consideration? This is to take into consideration regardless of the feasibility of it.
Okay.
Let them talk.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can't ever be a student.
You have somebody over.
Yeah, I'll back up for 2 points.
Wait,
Down
wait,
here.
Andy.
So I do want to just clarify your role. So, you are not simply an information aggregator, which then relays to the board. You do have, if you'd like to take that role, that's an option. But you are not simply responsible for receiving information and what you've heard so far and just simply telling the board, to go watch the videos and that's the information for them. You guys can deliberate, debate, and say, by a vote of 8-3, we support this as the best use for the property. Now, again, the board may decide for alternative reasons that it has to go with option number 2. But you certainly have the ability to not simply, relay what has been brought to you, but for you guys to debate what you feel the merits of the potential uses, including what was done at this property 5 years ago was a statement, something to the effect of to the highest and best use. That was what the community was saying for this purpose when it came to, they were saying, a district has severe financial challenges. Let's monetize this property really well. And so that was what the committee was coming out saying, is that let's look to monetize the property. Wow. You guys could come out and actually make a recommendation in the exact opposite direction. In fact, you could say that we believe this should be a community asset. Let's just go down the path of a community resource center. We think it should be a community resource center, but this should belong to the community. It already does belong to the community, and so our recommendation is that it be made available for $1. That doesn't mean the board's going to accept that, but Moore Unified just made available one of their surplus spaces for $1 a year to the county to run regional career technical education. So it's not an unprecedented thing. So that's the sort of things that you guys can talk about. How much do we want to weigh different factors when it comes to recommending something to the board?
And when you say this, you mean this property, right? Was monetary?
Sorry, 5 years ago, yes. Every time I bring this up, I make that mistake. Yes, when I say this, 5 years ago, there was a 7-Eleven committee previously convened to look at 414 East Ojai Avenue, the district office in Chaparral. And that committee encouraged the board to look at using this as an asset to help with our financial struggles. That doesn't mean that you guys have to take the same position.
Okay, so I'm 100% against that. I don't think we should monetize this property, because if we are, and the goal is to generate money, you know what's going to do?
Yeah, highest bidder.
Highest bid.
Yeah.
And that's going to change the fabric of Upper Ojai, and I'm 100% against it.
Doesn't make the list.
Good.
Allocated to the county.
So-
If it's in the hands of the county, does the county maintain it?
So
Yeah.
It's similar to the model, the way I understand it, is like they did down at Miners Oaks.
Oakview
Or
Community
Oakview,
Resource
Oakview,
Center.
yeah.
Like potentially, the county could purchase the property, then it's owned by the community, essentially.
Financed by the community.
And lease it out to Rock Tree Sky still, so that's still there, as well as other things, and then the community controls the property. Does that make sense? No, county controls the property. We buy it both.
How do they, I don't get
The
that.
Board of Supervisors has to approve, Barbara Kennedy submits her budget with a list of who's gonna be there, and they vote to approve her budget.
Let's
So
let's
whoever the
let's stick.
manager is.
She wants to get a word.
I am gonna
Yeah.
bring up one piece because it's a filter I try to use each day that I
Speak up.
have in my mind as I work with my students. And that's, we need to focus, I think with all due respect, a piece of it is the community and making sure that we do what's best for the community. But at the end of the day, we are talking about an Ojai Unified School District property, and we need to be talking about, as we look at this, part of the consideration is what's going to be best for the students in Ojai Unified School District. And so as we explore that, I think a piece of it that we do have to discuss is the monetary benefit of the property. I'm not suggesting we put a strip mall or a casino or something to the highest bidder, but I think as we look at these options, we do need to seriously consider what is going to benefit our students the most. And I'll put that out there as a discussion piece, whether that's considering a charter school, whether that's considering, well, not a charter school, but considering a public school. I think, in my personal opinion, a charter school is off the table. I say that because as we explore this, we're looking at something that's going to be pulling dollars away from our students, and it's going to be inhibiting our ability to create good programming within our school district. So in my mind, looking at other academic programs, whether they be programs, no matter how wonderful they are, or charter schools up there, is something that detours from Ojai Unified. That being said, we do need to look at what then, if we go that route, how does that benefit our students? And it's not just all students in the Ojai Valley, but our students in Ojai Unified. If there's a piece that we're not doing that is being better addressed and better served somewhere else, how then can we work within to fix that problem, to bring more students back in and work on our declining enrollment? But I think we need to look at, then the other option would be something that does bring money back into the school district to support those programming options, if that's what we're trying to accomplish. But
What about, we haven't heard from anybody on that, have we?
Well, what about selling the property for $1 million? And what does the $1 million do to OUSD students?
My understanding is if you sell it, it goes straight to facilities, so it wouldn't be ongoing funds and it could only be used in those ways. Not
So
that we
lease
don't
then
need
would
money
be
for
an
facilities,
option
we
that
do,
would be
but.
general budget.
And we'd return that $580,000 slated to repair
But
that
if you rented
facility
it-
back in to the rest of
Sure.
the facility, so we pick up $1.5 million.
Back to
which
facilities.
pays for that
Facilities only.
cafeteria and the
Yes.
eating
As opposed
room and all the other things that we
To
just
renting
put
it or leasing
until-
it, then that's ongoing funding that goes into our general fund that we
Okay.
could use toward materials for students or
additional
all
teachers.
sorts of things, a lot of things.
No, the lease, the terms of the lease is gonna be, you've heard Andy's negotiating a lot more.
So,
hopefully.
this may be a little premature, but can I make a motion that we vote on what's gonna be on our list? Are we there yet? Can we vote on our list? It's not the final, because we're still, people still have to discuss it,
Probably
but at least get to that compiling the list.
Sure, I think that's a great idea.
We have at least one member we haven't heard from at all. Would you like to weigh in? I'm sorry.
Another option?
I'm sorry, but you're
No.
here and we have our recorder down here. We should
Yes,
at
of course.
least get input.
No, I mean, what comes to mind, and you know, when she was saying benefiting the students in OUSD, I'm thinking something, you know, where you use the campus for camping trips or things like that, you know, within the school district. That's the only thing that came to mind when I was thinking. But I mean, I think if there is a successful program being run up there, it's going to generate money for the school. Why not?
But I think-
Rock Tree Sky.
I think
that's
Jim has
where-
said that he's open to having that
Yeah, and I
available.
think that's something that's possible with,
Right.
you know, having Rock Tree Sky up there is, you know, instead of going to Catalina, whatever, you know, you go up there, you camp for once, you know, Thatcher does that, they do, you know, camping
Yeah.
trips. So something like that, that's, you know, having, you know, sixth grade from each, you know, elementary school going up there, spending a week up there, you know.
That would be cool.
Something like, I don't know, that's just
What
an idea.
some of the comments that have been made are community social events, community potlucks, community yard sale, community music camp, farmers markets. All of these uses are, although the people haven't come here and specifically said them, you know, people have, I think the property is viewed by the upper Ojai community as a public resource, not just necessarily a school. And I think the issue, at least in my mind, that I'm having trouble with is that if this is truly a public resource, like a park, for example, or just a public piece of property, and we are then going to burden that piece of property for 15 years, for example, and I know I've talked to you about this, and enter into a contract with any nonprofit over, and it burdens the entire public piece of property from set time to set time, with that gives that nonprofit exclusive right to use it and exclude people from a public piece of property. There's something inherently wrong with that, and I'm struggling with it. As much as I love Jim, and as much as I love the tradition of keeping it as a school, me personally, I'm just struggling with that inside, because I see it almost akin to a park, and almost like, suppose it's any other nonprofit. I mean, there's so many different nonprofits other than a school who wanted to use it.
But I think it's possible already, people are already using it like that, and I feel like with a sale, it's so final, and it actually takes it out.
I don't trust the county.
Yeah, I feel like already, I mean, when I go pick up my girls at school sometimes, there are kids who, there's a bus drop-off right there, so there are kids using it who don't go to Rock Tree Sky, people using it on the weekends, after school. I think you already have a way that it's already being used as a community with the community controlling it. And you don't, and then, like you said, like in 5 years, if there is like more kids than for a public school, it can go back to a public school, but if you sell it, it's so final, and then you get the county involved, and then if you lease it, the money goes into the general fund that can, I mean, kids in other schools can benefit from it. And I just feel like the sale just, it takes power away from us, and now as a lease with Rock Tree Sky there, you know, you could have all those things, like a farmer's market on the weekends, and meetings at night, and camping trips for other schools. I don't, personally, I think that's the way to go, and the property's just getting better and better taken care of.
Every input that I've heard from Jim is that he has those same philosophies and wants to make it that. Wants to make it and manage that and create that space for that very
create
reason.
it into a true public resource.
Right, nothing
Not a vacant fallow
exclusionary,
field.
except for maybe, you know,
Right.
alcohol rehab center.
Well, in the interest of time, you guys, look, hold on.
Is
I
there,
mean, I
is
don't
there a
know.
way to have like a mixed use lease that would allow Jim to use it in the time frame that he needs it, and then also allow others, such as a community center type, you know, without having to go to the county and do the county sale part of it, but have a mixed use lease that would still keep it within the OIU Unified School District?
And Lauren, I want to.
All right, let's start making this list, you guys, because that's what we're supposed to be doing, and then we're supposed to be advocating, so.
With that question though, I do wonder then, could we essentially do what the county would be doing, but bringing in that general revenue?
That's my question.
Within that, with somebody like Jim managing.
So that it's written in, so that Trevor's concerns that you brought up in terms of.
So
you know,
something that Mr.
controlling the place.
Offerman mentioned to me afterwards, he goes, look, I think I kind of expressed concern about the county to him and not something, I don't know. You know, when you give a piece of property to the county, you never know what's gonna happen in 5 years, right?
Yeah.
He said, well, another option is to have a nonprofit come in and purchase that piece of property, and then the nonprofit comes in and acts like the county. But that's why I asked Mr. Bailey if they were in a position to do that, because if this, we could make this, take advantage of this public resource and keep it a public resource forever, because that's.
But I think you could do that, you don't even have to involve the county, like just don't.
Well, that's another
don't
option,
sell it,
I think,
but-
that's what I'm trying to get at.
Nice.
Buy it from the school without involving the county, without doing your self, tax assessment.
But if
So
somebody,
that would
there,
be-
he's not public, he's private. It's a public piece of property.
You're right.
And it needs to remain a public piece of property.
Okay.
That's the only one in Upper Ojai. He cannot find another place to put his school, as far as I can determine. And so this is it, it's public, and it should be used for the public.
I think we're all in agreement.
That's the first thing.
Let's make our list and then we can advocate on different positions, huh? Let's do
All
that.
right.
So I think the first list that must go on here is Rock Tree Sky. That's foregone conclusion.
I think first it should say it should remain public property.
Well, we'll put that as number 2. We're not establishing a priority list right now.
We're just coming up with a list.
Okay.
Just, these are
No
potential
priorities.
uses, and then we put it out to the public. Next meeting, we start advocating and making a priority number
But
1.
on our, this is our possible use.
Right.
Possible use remain public property is not really specific.
Right.
Wouldn't
Needs
it
to be a
be
little
remain a public school?
Well, Louise, do you mean that it remains empty? Or you just
I don't think it remains empty. I mean, a charter school is a public school. It is a public
Okay, so
school.
that-
In spite
you
of
want that on
what
the list.
Trevor says, it is public school.
So you mean charter school?
So, no, I don't mean,
Why
it
you
could be
calling
a
me out,
magnet
Louis? I
school,
never
it
said
could
anything
be
about
I
that.
think it should
something
stay on,
else.
I agree, I think charter schools should stay on the list.
Do we
Well, but
just
it's
say
a
school,
public
school
school,
use and not
whatever it
delineate?
is.
Just say school.
No, 'cause
Well, but we did
it's very
delineate.
important that it's a
School,
public.
school board's gonna determine
I
that.
know.
They
I-
might.
We're gonna
School-
recommend.
We can say charter school, we can
I
say
would
free
just
public
say-
All right,
school.
so
Whatever you
here's
want.
our list so far that I'm hearing. Rock Tree Sky, public school, charter school.
Well, public school and charter school are basically the same thing.
That's not what I heard.
I just want to be
No.
very clear that I'm not in favor of charter school for the reasons that have been mentioned.
Well,
so.
We're not
that's
making
your
the- we're
opinion
not
about
making the
that.
final
We're talking
determination.
about.
We're
And
just
I
talking
agree.
about-
I don't even
Not-
think it
we're
should be
not
on the
talking
list.
about
Is
the kind of-
administration for
I have a
OUSD,
list to recommend.
so that goes
Yeah.
That's all I want to say.
It's just a list for further debate, we need to make a list.
Yeah, we're just making a list, crossing it off later.
Okay, so what we've done is we've done use.
List of priority uses. Rock Tree Sky, hold on. Public school, charter school, community resource center. A county property, I wrote down county property, only with contingencies, and that's my own thing, because I'm not giving to them and having 5 years that thing be sold to the next highest bidder.
On
No
the
way in hell.
resource center that you mentioned as an item,
Community resource center.
community center, is that with the county purchase or is that with anybody?
I just wrote it down because I think there's a difference between a county property and a community resource center,
Okay.
at least in my mind, because Steve Ackerman said you could go either way.
Community resource center that someone would end up purchasing.
That's correct.
Okay.
A nonprofit would purchase.
Some nonprofit purchase, okay.
That's the community resource center.
Okay, so we have 6, correct? Oh, we have a mixed-use lease that was brought up
Yeah.
as well. Okay, there's our list. We all on board with that?
Great.
You want to end early? Because
Yeah.
we're done. We just pushed this out to the public, right?
It would be great to actually begin to debate that priority, because again, what you're
Thank
really
you.
I'm hungry, man.
Sale or lease of
If
property.
you're gonna have your final board, or your final committee meeting next meeting, which I suggest you do, I think you're
Right.
there.
Mhm.
Pending the public input you receive at that meeting, then you shouldn't have, it'd be less desirable to have significant changes occur between now and when you finalize the report. Unless there's something so new that comes up during public hearing that you're like, oh, whoa, we really missed this, or we need to reevaluate in order. But you're really supposed to put something out so the community knows what you guys are thinking.
But I thought
You're
we were
like-
doing that today. I thought we were putting it out there and then it goes up for debate and it gives people time to come up with their debate and then.
What's the purpose of the following meeting then? We're gonna,
get
we're
feedback
gonna
on
lay
it.
it out.
As the
we're gonna
input.
Well,
get
again,
input.
Public
you
input.
either have one meeting
Finalization
after tonight or two.
recommendation.
You could have only one. The next meeting would be where you have the public hearing, and after the public hearing closes, you then
Make a
deliberate
recommendation.
further and then make the final decision on the recommendation of the board that same night.
So,
But again, if you're gonna do that, you really have to let the public know what it is that they should be coming to say, you guys are crazy, or wow, thank you so much, that's exactly what we want.
all right, so
Do
we
you
have
feel
members
the
of
list
the
is sufficient,
audience who
I'm
want
just saying, I think it'd be
to,
good to prioritize a little bit.
Right.
I know we're kind of diverting,
Three of
but
them are in the
there's
district.
people raising their hands that want to say something. I feel like we owe it to them because they showed up. Pedro, real quickly though.
Very, very
Yeah,
quickly.
but you're not supposed to reopen.
I know we're not.
This has nothing to do with
supposed
Rock Tree Sky. This is just an idea for some structure for your decision because I hear you all talking about community and money and everything. I'm working on a project and it defines harmony, which is the goal for families. And I think it also can be addressed for a goal for this, the use of this property, community harmony. And we've divided it into 7 areas. And if you can think of what if you plug in a strip mall, you can see that it would increase money, but it wouldn't develop relationships, it wouldn't offer opportunities for growth, and it wouldn't, so I just wanted to tell you the areas of harmony, and then you can see which option will maximize community harmony, which I think is the best way to measure your decision. The areas health and safety, they're key. First is health, that's the most important. Safety is then critical in order to be able to benefit from the other 5. And the other 5 are money, finances, relationships, helping relationships, increasing flow, that's like structure, productivity. You fit it in, growth, opportunities for growth, and opportunities for fun. Those are the 5 areas after health and safety to maximize that are addressed in harmony. The second is, as a business owner, I know that if I were receiving this this report from you, I would appreciate it just simply this list that you're talking about with the pros and cons. You can add the one that you didn't want to put on the list, and you can list the cons, you can list the pros, and then I would receive and I would make my own decision. Just an idea for you guys how to prepare this report. And the last thing is, as a business owner, I know that when I think of long-term wealth, I know that having money one time is definitely not the vision for long-term wealth. I only measure it in cash flow. So long-term, if you have cash flow, a steady stream, this is how
I'm sure every wealthy person will measure wealth and not as a one-time shot. That's dead and the other is living. So I wanted to give you guys those, if you call them
Thanks,
tools,
Pedro.
ideas.
I wanna offer a
Schools are
thought,
gonna be
so we
cash
can
flows.
try to move this on, because, you know, we're getting into all kinds of plethora of usage. You know, we've got youth up there, we've got community, we've got a couple things, so I'd like to offer this. Continue on with the one-year leases we have now. Give time to eliminate or allow and settle the question once and for all as to population, public school, charter school, because they're either gonna come back and they're not. If you're sitting here a year later and you still have nobody building up there, and there's only been 1 or 2 permits in the entire area up there to rebuild, it's not rebuilding, they're not coming back. Give the people a chance, whether, and I'm not gonna saddle him with this, but he's kind of the one that opened up Pandora's box. Give a chance to have some community meetings and say, hey guys, the property's worth $750,000, it'll cost you $50 for 30 years, and 600 families, we can buy it, and turn it into a community center, and they're gonna run it, and that allows them to say no. That allows the other uses to say no. It allows, we're not gonna have a school, my understanding, in 2020, they're not gonna have it, so there's no bumping up where, you know, the school board is gonna say, hey, we can't extend the lease for another year because we got all these 18 kids that wanna come back. That's not gonna happen. And so, why don't we give some consistency and give it a little time? And I will tell you, having been into rezoning the flood for 16 years and 14 years building the skate park and some of these other issues, things fall out. And you don't have to make decisions, they just fall out, and then you end up with a result at the end.
Bob,
People come through, people don't.
your comments go to number 1, Rocktree Sky, because what you're saying is, let's enter into a lease with Rocktree Sky for a period of 1 year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so, but that list of uses is already on here. Our job tonight is to,
No, I'm here. Sale or lease, I'm saying lease.
I understand
Don't
that.
entertain sale.
Our job tonight is to develop a list of priority uses, which we've done. Rocktree Sky is on there, right?
That would be lease, right?
Lease 1 year.
Right.
Or-
That
well,
was the
lease,
first
and
thing
then
that
we
we
can
put on
specify.
our list was a Rocktree Sky lease, I thought.
Oh, well,
Was-
no, possible uses. I'm saying time, not 10 or 5 or 15 years. I'm saying 1 year.
He wants it to only be a year.
Just don't do anything.
100% I can hear that.
No, 1 year and let everything fall out, because at the end of 1 year, it's gonna be very apparent what the answer is. Rocktree Sky will still be there. The school's probably not gonna, the elephant, let's talk about the elephant. We're probably not gonna have enough kids to have OUSD go ahead and decide that they want to put a public school back. There's a probability that we're not gonna get enough kids for a charter school. And so what happens is.
Make a motion, Bob. Just
That's-
make a
that was
motion.
my
Put
motion.
some. Okay, is there a second to his motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's it, too.
Okay, it fails. So,
That's good.
okay, back to the
At least
list.
that's one thing.
Let's
I'm
move
gonna-
along.
it's
All right.
one off.
Yeah.
Gotta
All
go
right.
somewhere, we just can't
Thank you,
sit
Bob.
here, we can't sit here and talk all night and go
But
nowhere.
Trevor,
Thank you.
I
I think the item
Can
on
we
the
vote
list
on
is
these
lease,
different
and then the specifics we
items
leave
in
till later, right?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
At least I thought that.
Are we to
Yeah.
6?
We're on,
6
yes.
total?
Now, what I
I
heard.
did have one question though. The mixed use property,
Correct.
what, can we clarify that a little bit more? I didn't really know that I understood that.
Before we go there, I was hoping that we could pare down this list with,
Yeah.
because I'm gonna make a couple motions,
Okay.
and if they fail, they do, and if they don't, whatever. I would move that we remove charter school and public school from our list of 6 items. Second.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's
Well, let's have a
carried.
hands.
It's carried.
Is there anyone
Raise
against?
hand so we can
Yeah.
do it for the minutes.
Obviously me, I moved.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 carried.
I got 7.
Okay. Is there any, who's against? 2 abstentions? None, right? Because there's
Yep.
9 of us.
We still have-
3 against.
3 against.
4 against.
Raise your hands.
We got
Who's
11.
against that motion? Okay. And there's no abstentions, so because there's 11 of us. We get that in the minutes?
Yeah.
All right, so charter and public are now gone. Our list is down to 4 items. Let's, in the interest of time, let's go down chronologically and kind of drill deeper into this. So,
Can I get that clarification then on the mixed-use property
Can we get
definition?
the air turned off?
well, I was hoping we could just start with one and then get to, because mixed use is number 2.
I turned it off.
Okay, I just don't,
We'll
I
get
just don't
there.
understand it.
Me neither. Me neither exactly, but I think
Okay.
since the first thing on our list is a Rock Tree Sky lease, right? That's the first thing on our list. Can
We're
we?
putting a time.
That's what I was hoping we could talk about, because that needs to be put out to the community. Instead of just saying lease, let's,
I'd say,
Well, my feeling is if we're taking public school off this list, or charter school,
We
then
did.
we could expand our notion of how long that lease could be.
great, so let's have some discussion about it. What are everyone's thoughts about the terms of
I'd
the
say
lease?
whatever, I concur with Jim, I mean, he's the one leasing it, that's what he wants.
15 years? 5-year lease with the option to enter into 2 consecutive 5-year terms.
Now, in this lease, are we having a discussion now about
It's not a done
including
deal.
sort
It's just
of
an
mixed
envelope.
use elements
No,
to that lease?
That's number
a
2.
separate
That's
thing.
number 2,
Okay.
I think. Because,
But we can
But it
accept
might
both
change
on
our-
our
it
list.
might-
right,
Yes,
we're
yes,
getting
yes,
there.
yes.
Yeah.
This is just what we're putting
Okay.
out to the public, I think.
Okay, okay.
So we'll say, here's the list of priority uses.
Right.
A Rock Tree Sky lease for a period of X. We're trying to develop X right now. So that's number 1. What,
You're welcome to give a range, doesn't have
Yeah.
to be 15, you could say for, you know, a midterm, if you were thinking 5 to 15, or you could say a short term, you know, 1 to 3, you know, it could be a range if it's hard for you
Could
guys
be
to
anything.
nail down.
But it's still negotiated, board's gonna come up with
Exactly,
their
that's,
thing,
that's
so.
just you guys
Exactly.
giving
and
feedback.
what, and how we got there and why, I think is important. The
I feel
school
like
board's gonna
5
wanna
is
know
too
this.
long.
I think 5 years makes sense. You know, I don't think we foresee any major growth or changes that would change our mind in 1, 2, or 3 years. So, I move that we consider recommending Rock Tree Sky between 5 and 15 years as part of our list.
Seconded.
So, when do we discuss that motion? I think now, before we vote, I'd like to discuss it. I think, personally, I think a 15-year period is too long. I think a 5-year period is doable, but I would want to reevaluate things after 5 years. At least I would, if I was on the school board or as I was a superintendent, I would want that
With
ability to reevaluate.
reevaluation
things.
at 5.
Right, and not an arbitrary right of first refusal or whatever, it's just a 5-year lease. That gives Rock Tree Sky security.
5 years
assuming that's
lease,
what people want.
reevaluation with 5.
Yeah,
All right, like that.
so with that.
Amend the motion.
With that amendment, I mean, I just feel that that's
Go
my
ahead.
personal thought. So,
I second the
amended motion?
Amended motion.
So the motion then is to, the list of priority uses, number 1, and this is not in any particular order yet, I don't think, enter into a lease with Rock Tree Sky for a period of 5 years with, after the expiration of 5 years, the board or the superintendent can reevaluate the terms of the lease.
Question, who's gonna be responsible for the maintenance and upkeep?
Rock Tree
I
Is
Sky.
that
don't think
gonna
we
be-
need to get into
Yeah, I
those
don't think that-
specifics.
Is that gonna
Yeah.
be
We have to-
OUSD continuing to pay for the water? and
That's
to pay
all
for
we
the
That's all
others?
part of
It's
the lease,
not
I'm
ours.
sure.
No,
That's-
we're gonna
We
turn
don't
this
need to
place
decide
into a
those
jewel,
things.
right,
That's
Jim?
not us.
Yeah.
That's not
Well,
us.
that's a big money chunk, those guys, if
All
we're
right.
talking about money.
So, all in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Anyone against?
Go ahead and raise your hands again, do you need for the minutes?
This is just
Emily,
going
are
on
your
the
hands
list.
up?
This is just to go on the list.
Going on the list.
Just to go on the list.
To go on the list.
Okay.
Okay, so
And
that was
then
everyone,
11.
please, it looked like you're getting.
All right, so that's on the list. Number 2, mixed use lease. What does that mean? Mixed use.
What I was meaning is, I mean, is there a way to define the allowable use of other groups in the community? I mean,
Community
you're-
center.
Such as a community center or what, I don't really know what it means, but I'm
Instead
saying,
of
I'm
saying
saying.
Rock Tree Sky
yeah.
has sole
That's
control.
the-
Right.
Rock
that's-
Tree Sky
To allow-
has it Monday through Friday from
Community-
8:30 to 3:30,
community
and
use.
from
Or-
then on it can be community use.
Part of the facility.
Like
Or-
perhaps we would word it
Is
such that we, we recommend that
Okay.
when this lease is entered into, that these certain things be considered. That
Shared
we-
facility.
Yeah, that
Mixed
shared
use
facility, that
facility.
we do and, you know.
Those
have a
items that
vision.
people have been requesting.
Exactly.
Yes.
Shared community
Right.
facility.
I think that's
Those-
very
And maybe
important.
under the umbrella of like Upper Ojai, the community.
council.
Council, that's the word I was looking for.
So that would just be a rider onto the Rock Tree Sky
I think so.
part, right? Because Jim would be administrating it?
I would think so. I mean, I don't know that there's a difference between one, and it's just an addendum to our already passed motion, kind of, right?
But I like that we're including it in, for the next meeting to go public, because there may be people with unique ideas who have a vision for it, for the mixed use that we could hear from.
It
to
just
support
allows
that.
it to be more of a community use space instead of just.
I'm
Rocktree
speaking
Sky.
to your concern about it being outside, so like giving it sort of a hard, sort of, I don't know, definition, thank you, instead of a verbal agreement.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we hear from Jim and we know what Jim wants, we know his intention or what he says his intention is, no offense, Jim. But if you wanna know for sure that you
Well-
have that ability to use that space,
I would-
is there a way to write that into the lease
Well,
or
that
the
is a
agreement?
concern of
Yeah,
mine,
that's
and
what I'm saying.
I told
With-
Jim that concern.
But it's not directed at Jim, it's
Absolutely
you're
not.
part of a nonprofit that's composed of a board. I'm having, you know, you can't control your board sometimes. What you think and what your board thinks may be two totally different things, so I think it's important that we not completely burden the property with that and maintain the ability of other people to use it.
Absolutely.
This is a public resource.
Right.
Use assets.
Alright, so then number 2 would be a rider to the Rock Tree Sky 5-year lease with some sort of mixed use definition, which we can
Mixed use
define.
community access.
Yeah, community, I like that. Is that fine? Do we need to make a motion? All in favor? I think we're all in favor, right? Is there a motion for a community mixed use lease rider to the Rock Tree Sky 5-year lease?
I make that motion.
Alright, second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody against it?
Well, this is just to go on the list.
I know.
Yes.
Okay, we're just, community property with contingency.
Wait,
I'm
okay,
sorry.
so
Every,
everybody-
pass unanimously.
Is it unanimous?
Yes.
You don't raise your hand, you're buying us dinner
I
next
know,
time.
that's why you.
You wish.
I can always wish. A community property with contingencies, that's number 3. So this goes on the list, this is on Offerman's proposal, or not proposal, I guess, what he came to the board to talk about.
Came to the board to explain how the citizens up
So
there
a county-owned
would
community center?
tax
County-owned community
themselves,
center with a
tax
self-assessment
themselves,
tax.
and buy, and have the county take it over
Yeah.
and administer it. So it would be a community-funded county asset.
That's correct. Community-owned, community asset, county asset.
Property bond, you know, you would indebt your property.
It's a self-assessment tax,
Yep.
which by your math is 75, not $150.
Yeah, this thing.
I'm
is-
just kidding, don't go there.
No, let's
I'm messing with
I'll
you.
sell it. I sold the 60 million.
No, I'm just kidding,
If I sell
totally
60
joking,
million,
sorry.
I can sell this.
Sorry. Alright, so is that cool to put on the list? Can we have a motion and then we
I
just
just
vote on
wanna
it?
share that I do have concerns about that in general.
Okay,
I have concerns about completely selling the property, especially before we've decided what we're doing with the 414 East Ojai Avenue. Because at some point, if we need to move off of this area, we may at a later date want to reconsider, you know, moving different departments and things to different sites. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
I like it on the list though, because I think it shows, you know, it shows that we are aware that Upper Ojai is a community and might be interested in such a thing, whether it comes to pass or not. At least it shows that we, the committee, do recognize that there may be a will to do this.
So that's for the county, right?
yes,
That's the
county-owned community
I mean, I
asset
share
with
that.
self-assessment
Yeah,
tax.
no.
Yeah.
You
So
can
I make a
lease the
motion
property
to
from-
add the.
That's a very
county-owned
interesting point you brought up.
So that's just one concern. I also have a concern just to keep it hours for a while longer in honor of the community wanting to see if there's growth with student bodies, so that's the other piece. So.
But I think the point of this list is to go to the public, right? at this
Yeah,
juncture
absolutely.
And get whatever,
I just,
solicit.
And now we go.
you're absolutely right,
Wanted to hear
and
breathing.
should we all keep it on the list? That's fine. I just
Bring
wanted
it
to
up again,
express
too.
opinions,
Sure.
so that when we're, you know, getting
Debating.
down the road of debate, people know where the pros and cons lie.
So I second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Please
Anyone?
raise hands.
You don't wanna go?
I'll put it on, yeah, I don't know.
Those
It's on the
against,
list.
did you get that?
I'm not gonna.
2, 3, 4, 5,
Yeah, so
6
who's
in favor.
against?
We're getting it, hold on, let
We
her
got
count
two
in favor.
against?
Yeah.
Against this
Again.
motion.
Against.
Against.
This is against the motion. 3, 4, so it passes. 7-4. Okay,
Well, wait a minute.
this is just to make its way to
Just
the
to go on
list.
the list.
It's just to go on the list, yeah.
You were against putting this on the list?
Yeah,
Me?
I was.
Dr. Knox?
Yeah.
Okay, I just,
Okay.
all right.
That's it, we're done.
Well, isn't there another?
We're done with our list, we got rid of the other two.
Can you read it one more time?
My part, sorry, my fault, thank you. The last thing, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Community resource.
4. I did.
Not county owned.
A community resource not county owned, so this would be forming some type of nonprofit that would purchase the property outside of the county, and the nonprofit would own that Summit School and then administer the Summit School and lease it and do things like that.
Can you control that if it goes for sale? Like,
Well, you could, the recommendation, I think, to the school board would be, we recommend that you sell it with these following contingencies, and those
Oh, I see.
contingencies
Okay.
could only be met by certain nonprofits, like
okay.
have to be an educational nonprofit from Upper Ojai or something like that, that's very narrow.
I've
That
heard
is-
nobody in favor of this.
That is so vague, I don't think I could support.
Just to be clear,
putting
it's
it on
really the
list.
same concept as county, instead of forcing every community member to pay, instead it'd be a nonprofit that might do a fundraising campaign or something, it's
Yeah.
really, it's
Oh.
just, it's either forcing all 700 parcels to pay, or it's doing it voluntarily. Somebody that might have more than $75 who wants to see it could
Somebody might have
donate
some
more,
money
and
to
others
buy
don't have to. I mean, that's
There's plenty of people with money up
practically
there.
speaking how it would work out.
I like this on the list, I think it gives people fodder and they can talk
Yeah,
about it,
sure.
and why not? It doesn't,
I second
we don't
it.
necessarily need to
Sure.
eliminate it, it's not a bad idea, I think.
Jessica, was it your second?
I second it, yeah.
All in favor? To go on the list.
Just to go on the list.
This is for nonprofit.
Nonprofit,
Just go
right,
on the list.
okay.
1, 2, 3, 4,
I'll
5,
start.
6, 7, 8.
Sure.
All opposed? 3.
Okay, so we got a list of 3, right?
Yes. So there's our list of priority uses. Next,
Can you just read it one more time?
sure.
I'd like to hear it.
Number 1. Maybe you can read it if you're keeping them all down correctly. You want me to try it?
I have a Rocktree Sky 5-year lease with a rider on it to discuss after.
That's number,
5
so
years.
that would
It's
be number
one.
2.
Are we doing
No,
it in
that's
order?
number 1.
This number,
It was a Rocktree Sky lease for a period of 5 years.
right.
With a
Okay.
mixed use rider.
That was
That
the
was number
second
2.
option.
Those are two.
That was a-
two
that was-
separate
Okay.
options.
Oh, it's two different ones?
Two
Those are 2 separate options.
Oh.
Option number
I thought that
1,
was just
There were
a.
2 separate ones.
option number
Okay.
1 is a Rocktree Sky lease for a period of 5 years. At the expiration of the 5-year period, it's to be reevaluated by the board or the current superintendent, right?
That's fine, because they're easy to separate. It'll be easy for the community to
Okay.
get in and separate it.
And option number 2 is the same thing with a community access rider.
With the rider.
Yes.
Inclusion.
Right. Option number 3, community county-owned community property with contingencies. And option number 4 is a community resource, some it's purchased by a nonprofit.
Do we want to talk about the order?
No, we have an order right now.
I know, I like the order, but I
I
didn't
do
know if
too.
you wanted that order.
I do too.
I would rather put number 2 as number 1.
Me
Yeah.
too, personally.
Yeah, me too.
That
I
would
would
be
support that.
my
If we-
vote.
Make a
We'll
motion.
make a motion to
I make
make an
a,
order, a
Yeah.
current order,
Change.
Prioritize?
Flip
I
2 to
second.
1.
priority order.
make a motion to change 2 to 1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Cool.
Christine,
And
were
then,
you
let's
the
keep
second?
going then.
I think she was the second.
Okay,
I'll be the second.
okay. That was unanimous?
I would make a motion to make, switch 3 and 4.
Yes, I second
County is
that.
last.
I second that.
All right, all in favor?
Sure.
Anybody against?
Okay.
Doctors
Just to be
against?
against.
Just
Yeah, I
the
just-
loner. You're riding home with me, dude, you better be careful. All right,
We
so,
just haven't
so
heard
here's our,
anything
here's
from
our,
anybody in that realm, so
We
I
have-
don't,
Alright.
I don't, know how it gets up above county since we heard from counties.
So it's 2, 1, 4, 3 then, is the priority list for the community.
That's my job, isn't it?
Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, what do we have left on the agenda?
Adjourn meeting.
Well, when is our next meeting?
In 2 weeks on Thursday, though.
2 weeks on Thursday. What's the What's the date?
Oh, May
I believe it's May 9th.
5/9? 5:30.
May 9th.
5:30. Everyone's gonna be here?
I will not be here, unfortunately. I will be on Catalina Island with my 6th graders. So
Cool.
that's a very good reason not to.
Okay, very good meeting.
What was your opinion, Bob?
Oh, I don't have an opinion, I just said there's a way to change what happens.
Trevor, I will type up my thoughts
By
and
how the
send them
report
so
I
at
was
least they're
hoping
part of the.
you could do that.
And
Let us know.
you had a different thing, and it is, you said I'm not for that, number 4.
5:15.
Switching.
Right now.
7:15.
Sorry.
Sorry.
All right,
So I don't know.
meeting's adjourned.
Meeting's
Good job,
adjourned.
guys.